Welcome back to a breaking news episode of Just Giants podcast. This isn't even an episode. This is just a real quick reaction thing. Following the loss to the New York Jets, the Giants are trading away interior defensive lineman Leonard Williams to the Seattle Seahawks for 2 picks. They are getting a 2024 second-round pick and a 2025 fifth-round pick. Interesting note here is that the Giants traded with the Jets for Leonard Williams for a future third and a future fifth. So not all that different. They're actually getting a one to one if you're just going by draft picks accumulated for the piece moving. We have a better return than what we spent to get him. There are other factors involved. We don't know any details really about how money is moving around. We have some light details in that the Giants are eating the majority of his salary by way of a signing bonus, converting the remaining salary to a signing bonus, and the Seahawks are only paying him the vet minimum prorated for the remaining games on the schedule. That's all that they owe. That being said, but with all that off the books, that's for this year. There is a void year for him next year, and I'm unsure how that void year plays out in this trade, and I haven't seen anyone shed any light on it. But that is the move. The Giants have moved on from Leonard Williams following the game against the Jets to the Seattle Seahawks, and 2 draft picks are coming their way, a premium one in a 2024 second-round pick. What thoughts as soon as you heard this?
Well, my initial thought was something I've been thinking all along is that, in spite of what happened last year, making the playoffs, in spite of the potential of this offseason, and even in spite of all the injuries that have really, short-circuited this season, this is a clear signal that this front office thinks that not only are the Giants still in rebuild, but that window for really competing might be further down the road than we as fans think it might be. I mean, Leonard Williams is a piece that they obviously decided would not be a piece of a team that would be seriously competing for a championship. So they decided to move on from him. I imagine between now and the deadline, there'll be some other guys who they've made the decision will not be here, when this team has that window. So we said this last offseason, we said in the playoffs that don't let this run take your eye off the ball, that this team has a lot of work to do with this roster. The starting 12, the depth of it, the salary cap, draft picks, all this stuff, that we are in a rebuild. And, was last year a fluke? Don't know, don't care. But the fact is a lot of work had to be done. And you can see that this team, with the injuries it had this year, is right now a non-functioning football team. So, we will see, these moves, if they're making the right calculations or not, or we're just perpetuating this never-ending cycle, it appears, of starting over, rebuilding. But I think, the writing was on the wall that there is a lot of work to be done on this team. And if you decide you're not going to the playoffs this year or next year, and there are assets this year, trade them in for future assets to build for that window.
I don't think that this front office ever thought that the rebuild was not done. I think that they knew last year was a lot of easy schedule, a lot of ball bouncing their way, a lot of coaching was the difference.
Oh, I didn't say that.
No, I know. Yeah. But from a fan perspective, it's easy to get sucked into the success that happened last year, the tangible success that they had. But I don't think at any point the front office had their eyes move. I don't think this move signals any change or anything like that from the front office. I think that Leonard Williams was the easiest piece to point at and be like, who's a trade piece? I mean, this was a dude that they clearly were non-committal on going into the future. They didn't do... I mean, we hadn't heard any work that there were talks between both Leonard Williams' camp and the Giants' camp about extending him. He was in the last year of a deal. He's only ever been expensive his whole time in the NFL. It's easy to see that they would be difficult negotiations to try and navigate if they were going to try to extend him after extending Dexter Lawrence. It was clear that Dexter Lawrence was their priority. I don't think that this trade means anything. I think that they were probably going to let him walk at the end of this season, and they would put feelers out there for an extension. He's clearly a very good player. I know some people keep saying that he's washed. I don't think that that's true. I think that he is a very, very, very good player that has had 2 straight seasons now where he's taken a lot of snaps and a lot of beating, and he's not what he was, but he's not washed by any means, I don't think. I think he's still a very, very good interior defensive lineman. Seattle clearly thinks so. They said, as Pete Carroll praised the Giants' defensive line after they beat the snot out of us, he praised his own offensive line for holding up against what he called one of the best defensive lines in the league. And then they went out and traded for him now that they have control of the NFC West a little bit. So I don't think that this signals any sort of change. I don't think that this team is fire selling in a reaction to a loss either. I don't think that this move is necessarily a reaction to a loss. If anything, I think it's a reaction to the dominance that the defensive line had made him feel even more expendable than whatever they might have thought. If there was any part of the last 2 weeks that played into this decision, I think that it was other teams took more notice of how good he still is, and less likely, but still both of these are not likely, B, is the Giants feel comfortable with what they have built and they are comfortable with moving on from Leonard Williams.
Yeah, I think it's simpler than that. I just don't think this is a very good football team. I mean, for all the injuries kind of exposed.
I don't think that. I don't think they were going to keep him.
Let me finish before I just don't think this is a very good football team in the fact that they are very thin. They have some top level talent. They have position groups that are pretty good. Defensive line certainly being among the best of them, but this team is very thin. And as soon as we had injuries in key spots, this team became, you saw what you saw yesterday. Even with Tyrod Taylor, this is a team that had 0 passing game, 0. And I think this just, there's a lot of work to be done on this team too. And it's not going to happen by even next season you have a player and you have a team on different timelines, and it just doesn't make any sense to keep a guy like this anymore. I think it's as simple as that.
I don't think he was ever part of the future for them.
Right. So exactly. So I don't think there's any change in any philosophy. I think it's what I mean. The realization.
Yeah, I don't think it has anything to do with the team not being any good. I think the team isn't good, therefore they're getting more phone calls.
Well, I think if the team was good, they would have kept him for a run. But this team is not good, and we are not far enough. We're not far enough along on the rebuild to say keep him. It's we're just not there yet. It takes time.
But still, I mean, that's old news. I mean, like,
I know,
when the injuries happen in week 2.
That's what we're saying.
Yeah,
that's exactly it.
Yeah, but that's just they were entertaining trade calls once they're not good. The reason Leonard Williams is because this is the most expendable person at the deepest position group that they have. He was at the end of a contract. They never really saw him going forward, I don't think, because I think next year when Seattle or whomever, once he hits the market, Seattle doesn't have to keep him in 2024. I think he's going to try and command a lot of money. I mean, we saw the defensive tackle market explode.
Sure.
So, I mean, he's only ever been expensive. It's not like his play has dipped crazy. I mean, I think he's going to command a lot of money anyway. So I don't think that they ever really saw him as a viable thing beyond this year. So once this year was out of the question, he became the easiest one of we could trade that. Even if they were doing well, I think you could still, they might not have traded him for draft picks. That if this team were competing, they could have moved on from him for, I don't know, a tackle or something like that.
I think if they were competing, if they were, let's say they were healthy, but closer to Philly than maybe Dallas, I think they keep him. I just think that, even at full health on this team, I think they're still far away enough from legitimately competing for a championship that he's moving on. But if we were, let's say we were 5-2 and a legitimate 5-2, I don't think they're trading him.
No, but if they were 4-3 and they think they can win, but they're going to need a wide receiver because Jalen Hyatt got hurt or something like that.
But they better bring in a player for today. Then
that's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that even if they were good, I still think Leonard Williams was expendable to them going into this year. Just to put the exclamation point on how not a change in anything this is. The only change to me is that they are very solidified in that the rebuild is ongoing at this point, and they got future assets. So I mean, I think that it sucks because I think I like Leonard Williams as a guy. I certainly like him as a player. I think he's a good player. I We don't need to rehash what it took to get him. That's irrelevant at this point. He's here now.
Well, now he's
now he's gone. So I mean, it sucks.
Yeah.
It sucks because I think you could have made the argument that if you could get him on an affordable deal next year, it would be worth it, because I think that he still has 2 to 3 years. I think he has 2 very disruptive years left in him. That third one, I'm not so sure. But I think you could. I think that there was something that they could have built off of there. But this is absolutely the right move. There's no question in my mind.
A very high draft pick and another medium, to lower draft pick are more important in the long run for this team than him for next year and maybe the year after.
All right, everyone. So next morning we will have our Jets-Giants review episode. So be sure to stay tuned on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, and of course YouTube, and tell a friend about the Just Giants podcast. Until then, go Giants.
Go Giants.